I want to welcome everyone here. This workshop is called Money, Spirit, and Life, the Wisdom Path. And this is program number 327. So welcome and settle in, and we're glad you're here. I am Gail Forsyth Vale. I am the Adult Programs Director in the Faith Development Office at the UUA. And I was the developmental editor of the curriculum, The Wisdom Path. So I want to introduce the workshop leaders here. So starting way over on my left, we have Wayne Clark, who is Wayne, what is your actual title?
Director of the Congregational Stewardship Network.
Director of the Congregational Stewardship Network, where he directs the Congregational Stewardship Network, which is great. And some of you may have how many here have actually had conversations with Wayne? Probably a lot of you. So here he is in person. Next to him is Dan Boyce from the UUA President's Council, who is a really strong supporter of the development of Wisdom Path. And then the two authors of the program, who are the Reverend David H. Messner from Savannah, and Patricia Infante, who is regional staff in the Central East region and a religious educator, a long time like me. So those are our speakers today. And I wanted to tell you what's going to happen in this workshop and then turn it over to them. So we're going to have opening words, and then Dan is going to talk about the visions and the hopes for the development of the Wisdom Path curriculum. Pat Infante is going to lead us through one of the exercises in the curriculum, so we're going to have a little bit of fun. And then Dave is going to talk about why it's important to talk about money. And then Dave and Pat, the authors, are going to give you a guided tour of the Wisdom Path. And Wayne is going to talk about how Wisdom Path is related to congregational stewardship. And then we'll do some Q&A. So that's the plan. And we're going to begin with an opening reading, which is actually made up of snippets that came in and the applications of we have 40-some congregations who are currently field testing Wisdom Path, and in their application was kind of a free-form question, why do you want to do this? And so our opening words are made up of snippets from their answers.
I think we need a place where we can be safe and vulnerable to talk about the things that are sources of anxiety and shame in our lives. I can't think of a more appropriate topic than money.
We have been looking for ways to explore living our values and exploring generosity in terms not only of treasure, but also of spirit and time.
We're curious to learn how our people think and feel about finances, and eager to find a robust theological vocabulary within which to talk about money. It would be so helpful to have a facilitated conversation about money in our own lives as well as in the congregations.
Doing such work as a community will deepen our individual faith as well as strengthen our faith community.
Healthy, balanced faith formation incorporates this often difficult to discuss part of our lives. Money is a huge part of our lives and a huge part of our worries.
We have some young families who are entrepreneurs who think deeply about the connection between their business lives and their spiritual lives, seeking to integrate the secular with the spiritual.
Our goal is to have as broad a group as possible, from young adults considering how to ethically manage their money to older adults who have made decisions about retirement funds based on their values.
There's a growing interest in connecting our spiritual values to how we spend our financial resources.
We got money problems.
We need new tools.
We continue to look for new ways to honor who we were and still move gently into who we can be.
It could be a game changer in many of our congregations.
Well, thank you all for coming. I get to set the table. I'm Dan Boyce, and I have the privilege of sharing with you the history of this project. It makes me think of the wisdom of Winston Churchill's quote. He said, "History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it." And he did, as you know. So this is the history of money, spirit, and life, the wisdom path, according to Dan Boyce. While I'm giving my introductory remarks, I'm going to have Gail Forsyth Vale pass out to you a noisemaker. They're little hands, and I'd like you to keep them quiet when she first passes them out. I will walk you through it once you get yours, but it will be used in an exercise that we have in the Wisdom Path curriculum that you'll all participate in. Well, as a chronology, this curriculum started a little less than 4 years ago. It was a brainstorming session that was held at the President's Council meeting. For those of you who don't know, the President's Council is a group that meets once a year to advise the President, to give feedback, and to help raise funds for the UUA. And we were looking for some meaningful projects, some things we could sink our teeth into at the time. And Les Polgar, who is a member of the President's Council, and in fact just went down one of these rappelling ropes, came up with the idea of a money curriculum for UUs. At the time it was just kind of nebulous, but he thought that this would be an important topic. And it was because we don't really have good conversations in many of our congregations or even a deep understanding of money issues. And we nicknamed this OWL for Money. Okay, and it was I thought that was really an excellent nickname or code name for it, because it really got at what we were trying to do was look at a deeper understanding of our relationship to money and how it might impact us in our lives, and end up with a more mature relationship with that. Well, Les, having come up with the idea, it was one of the top ideas that came out of that brainstorming session, took over that idea and became head of a task force that was formed with about 7 of us that first year to look at the broad focus of that curriculum. And a few things were decided pretty early on, that we didn't want it to be a Money 101 curriculum, which is just talking about how money works in society, because there's so many secular resources for that, so we didn't feel like we needed to repeat that. And it wasn't meant to be a stealth stewardship campaign either. We didn't want people to come away from this saying, "Oh, that's what it was all about." We do hope that ultimately more generosity is a result of a greater and deeper understanding of how money works in our own lives. So that may well be an outcome, but not one of the primary goals for individuals taking that curriculum. Rather, we meant it to be a reflective, personal growth curriculum that's focused on exploring our individual and our collective relationship to money and the power and influence that it has in our lives. The second year of this, so we're now in 2011, fall of 2011. Les Polgar left the President's Council, and he left the task force, and I had been vocal enough on the initial task force that I was asked to step in and help facilitate that committee. And I did a few things. I expanded the committee, first of all, and I had a pretty clear vision of where I wanted to go with the curriculum. I wanted to divide it into 3 segments, which I'll mention in just a minute. I wanted to involve the UUA in this because none of us on the committee clearly were curriculum writers. And ultimately, for this to be successful, it had to have somebody who really knew what they were doing in terms of translating an idea and concepts into a program that would be well articulated with itself and lead to the ends that we wanted to accomplish. And so we were doing those things in the fall of 2011, and then in January 2012, I divided the group into 3 subgroups. Each of those subgroups was responsible for one of those 3 segments of topics, if you will, that we had previously divided. The first of those 3 topics is money and self, which was an exploration around awareness of our own money scripts, our own money past, and how that plays out in our lives today. The second segment and second subtask force was money and society. So that looked at how we use money externally. So dealing with things such as classism, social economic justice issues, socially responsible investing, things that we need to be aware of in the world in the ways that we use money externally, the external aspects of money. And the third is money and life. And that really looked at how do we ensure that money becomes, using this hopefully newfound awareness in the discussions, how do we make sure that money is an empowering force in our lives? How do we take that back and actually create an action plan for ourselves to move forward as a result of this? And the tasks, these 3 subtask forces, were really tasked with looking at the topics we wanted to make sure were covered as part of the curriculum, the rationale for including those topics, how it fit into this grand vision that we had, the priority of those topics, and finally a resource list. And all of that we could then turn over to the UUA staff once our work was complete, which it was in June of 2013, I believe. That was it. So, no, June 2012. June 2012. We turned it over to Judith Frediani in Lifespan Faith Development, or they keep changing the name on me, so I get lost in it. But her group, and Gail was also then engaged in this process. Gail spent the fall identifying the authors of this curriculum, who are David and Pat here, and then in 2013 it was being written, and all the way through 2013 we kept getting snippets of what was going on. Finally, in late October, it was rolled out. And there was a call for field testing. About 35 congregations responded to that call, which was a terrific response. Were any of you involved in field testing it out there? A few of you? Okay. Thank you. I'm glad to see that. And right now we're collecting field feedback on that field testing, and once that feedback is received, it can be tweaked and revised as appropriate. So that's where we are in the process. It's been a rich program and process for me. So I appreciate everybody's hard work in this in developing this program. Dan? Oh, thank you. Now that you all have hopefully a clapper, first of all, take about 10 seconds to try it and just see how it works. You don't have one, Gail, raise your hand. Gail, okay, fine. Just raise your hand and Gail will get one to you. Okay. Now let's Now, there's a little bit of leeway that you have in terms of how vigorously you shake it. So I'm going to start low, raise you up, and then raise you down. So try that. Low. Okay, and now one last thing. I'm going to start this way. I'm going to, as I point to you, start it, and as I move away from you, then you can stop. So. Okay, so that is you will all get instructions on the exercise we're about to embark on.
Thank you, Dan. All right, now we're going to try to have a little fun with our Wisdom Path learnings. So you all have practice with your clappers. Has anybody ever done a spectrum exercise where you identify yourself and your feelings or your opinion or your ideas along a spectrum from one end to another? Many times in our workshops, in our curricula, we have that type of an exercise, and oftentimes it will be constructed so that you move from one corner of the room to another, so that the spectrum is, you're standing and it's sort of a physical activity. And we didn't really feel like we had the space to do that, so we thought we would try the spectrum exercise with the clappers. So we're going to have to be, part of the idea of a spectrum exercise is that as individuals, we identify ourselves along a particular spot in the spectrum. But what we're really listening for as a group is we're listening for the pattern. We're listening for the overall pattern in the responses. So what we're going to be trying to do with our clappers is listen for that pattern to see kind of where the group response really rests. So I'm going to identify a possible response on your part to money is, and we're going to do several of these. We've got a few minutes for this exercise, so we can practice. And if we don't get it right the first time, that's all right. So money is, and remember Dan was kind of doing like this. So money is a big part of my life. Practicing, okay. Not important to me. So a big part of my life, not important. Let's try it all together. Did anybody hear a pattern?
Do it slower.
We're going to try it again. It's good. We're practicing. We're learning. So money is a big part of my life. Not so important. The microphone's getting in my way here to have a really sweeping arm sweep. All right. Did anybody hear a pattern here? I think I heard that it was a big part of my life. Did others hear that as well? Good. Let's try another one. Let's see if another one is a little easier. Money is related to my faith. I'll read it first and then we'll clap. Unrelated to my faith. So money is wow. I heard a pretty clear drop off there as I got to the end, this left end, my left end of the spectrum. Oh, cool. Good. That's fabulous. Okay, so do we need to do that one again? No. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you could go in the middle too if you want. It's a spectrum. So you clap along that you start your clapping wherever along the spectrum you think you fit. Yeah, however long you want. You know, we're having some fun with it, and it's just it's a way for you to learn about some of the stuff that happens in the curriculum. So we're all just going to give it another shot here. All right, money is. Oh, he's good and slow. All right, that was a little better, I think. What'd you hear? Related, fabulous. This, by the way, is an exercise from early on in the curriculum, when we're all really just getting to know one another and kind of trying to establish that group dynamic that will be so important as we get deeper into the curriculum. So money is the root of all evil or a tool for good. All right, I was just reading it once. Now we're going to do it for real. He's doing it. All right. Wow. Well, we can have a little hitch in the middle. Well, we can't have too many notches along the way, because then we'd be here till tomorrow. But I hear you. So you want to do that one again? Yep. Money is the root of all evil. Somewhere in the middle, a tool for good. Okay, I think we're getting better at this, don't you? I think we're learning. Good. Dan's a big help. Thank you. All right, here's another one for you. Money is connected to things of value or disconnected from what's real. They're getting a little tougher, aren't they? We'll start over here. Connected to things of value. Kind of in the middle. Disconnected from what's real. And if you feel really strongly about one end or the other, I want you to really shake that clapper. I saw a couple of you really giving it a good shake. And that's in the spirit of the exercise. All right. Money is necessary in church or better left outside. All right? Necessary in church, somewhere in the middle, it's a trickle, or better left outside. Okay, well, I think that one was our most decisive response yet. Now, there's a few here that are I am happy to talk about money. I'm unhappy to talk about money. So let's start. Happy to talk about money. Kind of in the middle. Don't want to talk about it. Don't want to go there. All right, people, this is a good room. These folks are kind of on that happy to talk about money side, I think, more than the opposite side. But in our congregations, how many times do we encounter people who really have difficulty talking about money for any variety of reasons, which we will delve into a little bit when we talk about some of the other workshops. How many times have we experienced that in our congregations? Yeah, amen. All right, a couple more here. I am generous with money. I am miserly with money, or somewhere in between. Let's try this one. Generous with money. I do what I can in the middle. I'm miserly with money. Okay. Good. Well, I think, this sounds like it's a group that it at least has aspirations to be generous. And I think that there are a lot of people like that in our congregations who really aspire to deep generosity. But there are barriers for them that we hope that we can address with this curriculum. We'll try one more. I am in control of my money. I am subject to control by my money. In control of my money. In the middle, I'm subject to control by my money. Good. Let's see if there's one more. There's two more, actually. I am a worrier about money. I am carefree with money. I am a worrier. I'm in the middle. I'm pretty carefree. I'll be giving 20s out at the exit. Okay. Okay. And I have one more, and this is, I think, a really deep spiritual question for all of you. I am rich, I am poor. I am rich, I'm in the middle, I am impoverished on the left. We'll talk about that in our curriculum, won't we? Okay. That was quick. So you have extra time.
Could I ask people to pass those to the center aisle so that I can pick them up?
Yeah. But now you have a great idea. When you do the curriculum in your congregation, you can go and get those clappers.
Oriental Trading Company.
China.
You're very welcome.
This is like the offering. It's so good to see a full room here. I'm going to talk a little bit, if you can hear me, I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're talking about money. I've been given 10 minutes, but if you give me a pulpit, you get 22. It's the only unit in which my speaking comes in. Let me begin in the place I begin most sermons, and that's with my personal problems. And let me begin with that in money. I am a father. I have 2 children. They're 10 and 13 now. And as a parent, I'm sure many of you have had the experience. You try and teach your kids about a number of different things. Money is just one of them. I started to undertake, I guess, about 5 or 6 years ago. First thing, I thought I would teach them a little bit of wisdom, a key lesson about spending money. So I started to give them each a weekly allowance. I did that week after week after week. And the money was just piling up. And I realized they had nothing that they wanted to spend money on. So that was going through my mind, how to teach them to dispose of the money. And I'd go by, there'd be a candy shop, like the fudge store upstairs. And I'd want to say, you can afford to buy anything you want there. And then I stopped. What am I doing? And then I thought I could show them Amazon. I love cruising around Amazon. You can buy anything in the world. You can import goods from China with your money. And I stopped and I said, what am I doing? And then I thought maybe I could start charging them for the meals in the house. That would really connect basic value. But at the same time, it wasn't what I was trying to teach them about our family. So I went on. I said, well, it's a pile of money. Maybe I'll teach them about investing. First investment I had them do was in a real estate investment trust. Now, that's a whole special other workshop to talk to you about REITs and what they do. Suffice it to say that this was the greatest real estate investment trust collapse in the history of America. It went from $200 to 84 cents. So then I thought I'd teach them about savings accounts, FDIC insurance. And I found out the savings account pays about 0.06% interest. So squirreling your money away for a rainy day, it really didn't yield much return, and I wanted to say, hey, just live the day. Spend your money. Through it all, I don't think I've been a terribly effective father when it comes to teaching about money. And I think that's because at its root, I feel confused myself. I feel conflicted because I have had throughout my life contradictory experiences with money. I've had the experiences of it bringing me joy in my life. I have had the experiences of it bringing me heartache. I've had it directed toward the things that have created everything I have today. It sent me to college. I wouldn't be in the ministry if some money didn't flow into divinity school. At the same time, it has drawn my attention away from the things that I valued most and been something I've struggled these past decades to let go of, so I can shake my clicker at that carefree end. That's the greatest gift. So I guess what I'm here to say, we're talking about money because it's so often that our values, they're contradicted. and they're confused. It's so often that our values change throughout our lives. Our experiences are different. Our relationship with money is dynamic and it is complicated. Church, my friends, it's the place, hopefully the haven we have to talk about the values that are contradicted, conflicted, and complicated. It's the place, a safe space that we open up to work those out together in relationship and hopefully in lively, clicky conversation. That's what we hope that this Wisdom Path curriculum is going to give you an entry point into that conversation. Part of this work and the declaration that the President's Council has made is that money is both worthy and difficult, and that we're a faith that's unafraid of taking on the worthy and difficult together. This is a way to open that up, and I want to point out and lift up that that is countercultural. I don't just mean in society today, I mean thousands of years of countercultural a kind of counter, that we're moving against thousands of years of a current saying that church and money ought to be separate. Render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, unto God that which is God's. Somebody said that a couple thousand years ago. Minister laughing in the front row. Scripture jokes. But I'm joking, but I'm not joking about the fact that there is a pattern of alienation from grappling with money and having direct and honest talk about it, and being able to do that in the context of faith and in the context of our faith communities. That's what we're trying to overcome, to be not a faith that retreats from worldliness, but finds our solutions in a path to living righteously within the world. It's one of the things that makes us different. Now, let me share one other problem I'll sort of close on, and it's a really simple one. This one is not as a father, but as a minister. Part of the challenge in church life and in all of our ministries in church is finding ways to draw people deeper into their own experience, draw people deeper into their own inward life, draw people into a deeper understanding of the journey they've been on and the meaning of their own experiences, and to pull people into activated conversation. That's a non-trivial task. How do you gather, whether it's 200 people in a room and get an energy going in that room, or whether it's 10 people in a small group ministry, how do you open the door and start to make connections among people? And I'm telling you, accepting only maybe sex, money is the way to open that door and engage people. And I hope that's where, as we go through the curriculum, you'll see each of these as kind of provocations and triggers and entry points into conversations that open people up and encourage honest exchange. And that we hope after a dozen sessions of the Wisdom Path, people emerge not only with a deeper spiritual understanding and connection between value and wealth, but a deeper understanding and connection of the wealth between and among one another. So let me stop there and say that we hope that Wisdom Path is a beginning to what will be a long and rewarding process together. Thank you, Pat.
All right. So now we are ahead of schedule. Yay! Wonderful. So we'll be able to spend plenty of time going through the curriculum itself. The curriculum is called The Wisdom Path, Money, Spirit, and Life. It's part of the Tapestry of Faith series of curricula that are made available to us through the Faith Development Office of the UUA. Who's using Tapestry of Faith in their congregations, either for children, youth, or adults? Wonderful. That's great. It's a tremendous resource that is available to all congregations of all sizes. It's online. There's no charge. There is a wide community of folks that are using the curriculum, so there are plenty of folks to talk with when you are facing challenges or you're just looking for creative ideas on how best to implement it. So that's my Tapestry of Faith commercial. I'm a big fan. I just want to introduce you to kind of the basic goals of the wisdom path. And I realize this is a little bit small, and I'll read a few of them out to you. We will be making the PowerPoint available to you later. I will also say that the wisdom path is online. It's available on uua.org. And there's actually, if you go to the RE section, or if you just go to the site map and look for tapestry, look for religious education, or search for Tapestry of Faith, there'll be a guide to adult programs, and you'll find it there. So all of what I'm showing you is coming right out of the curriculum and is available to you right now, today, online. So the idea behind the wisdom path, the big picture goals for the curriculum, are to explore the place of money in our lives, and not only in our personal life, but in the ever-growing lives. We have connections in our community, in our own neighborhoods. We have connections within our society through money, and we're very much, obviously, a global economy, so we're very connected throughout the world. It aims to help us articulate, to really delve into and articulate our own money story. We all have a set of cultural values and expectations and stories that we were fed with, that we were nurtured with in our childhood and on through into our adulthood. So those stories really create that perspective and that worldview that we bring into the congregations and bring into our working lives around money. It also hopes to lift up the spiritual teachings and to make those connections between how we spend our money, how we perceive the value of money in relationship with our Unitarian Universalist values, in relationship with our faith community. It's also to help us think about how the decisions that we make today with how we spend our money when we walk into Walmart, how that ripples out and impacts the world beyond. And our world is very interconnected, both through supply chain, speaking in the manufacturing sort of world, but it's also connected relationally. And our choices affect the lives and the well-beings of people that we will never know, but who are our companions on this planet. And finally, at the end, after the 12 sessions, you say, why should I do 12 sessions? Aha! Because when you get to the end, you will develop a personal credo around money. You will have reached the point where you will have delved into some challenging but yet energizing and freeing conversations around money, and you will be invited to create your own little credo about what it means, what wealth and what things of value really are for you. I just want to briefly show you a couple of pieces of the Tapestry of Faith vision. Tapestry of Faith, as a bigger program, has a vision of its own. And I just pulled these two pieces out because, for me, the Wisdom Path curriculum is such a beautiful and amazing fit with the goals of Tapestry of Faith. And I'm not sure that, I think the Wisdom Path sort of fits this first one in ways that not many other of our adult curricula do. Certainly our children's do. But this idea that we are obligated to use our gifts, talents, and potentials in the service of life. I think that the Wisdom Path really delivers on that particular piece of the Tapestry of Faith vision. I also think that the Tapestry of Faith, one of the big vision pieces, is to provide the folks in our congregations, to provide Unitarian Universalists with those resources for living. And resources for living, sometimes, we live a lot in our heads, and we need to bring it down to our hearts and to our hands. And I think through Wisdom Path, we have opportunities to do all three. So I'm really excited about the way Wisdom Path fits into the overarching vision of Tapestry of Faith. If you haven't worked with Tapestry of Faith, or even if you have, I'll just remind you that it is made up of 4 strands. So every curriculum within the Tapestry of Faith program will address the things about ethical development, spiritual development, our Unitarian, very specifically our Unitarian Universalist identity, not just our identity as progressive, liberal, Protestant, something or others, but really the Unitarian Universalist piece is a very strong thread. And then faith development. How are we deepening our understanding of our relationship to that which is larger? And so every one of the workshops in Tapestry of Faith is going to be connected to one of these 4 strands. Sometimes a workshop will tug on each one of these in a slightly different way, but all of this is part of the Wisdom Path. The structure of Tapestry of Faith, I think, is really important to success with the Wisdom Path. Because, we have trouble talking about money. I think we may have determined that earlier on, that in some congregations that's a hard thing to talk about. And so when we think about running a program, a 12-session program in our congregation, well, who's going to do that? What leaders have the spiritual, have done the spiritual preparation, or have reached that carefree point, or have a really strong sense of money as a positive force in the world? And we may or may not actually have that person in our congregation. So we hope that down the line we'll be able to provide some training for folks to actually lead this in the congregations. But until then, it's great that every workshop in the Wisdom Path has an opportunity for the leaders to do some spiritual preparation of their own. And it's a welcome thing for this to be a co-led offering. So you want to have maybe 1 or 2 people, maybe even a team of 3 or 4 leading this if you're going to be doing all 12. And what's wonderful is if the leaders can form kind of their own little sort of spiritual conversation group, and they can do some of that spiritual preparation with and for one another. So that's an integral part of every workshop, that there is spiritual preparation for the leader. As is the case in all of Tapestry of Faith, story is central. So there is always a guiding story. And some of the stories are short, some of them are biblical, some of them are taken from wisdom literature, some are taken from children's literature, but there's always a story that really tries to bring all the strands and all the pieces of the workshop together. Each workshop will provide opportunities for personal reflection, and hopefully there are many of the workshops, maybe not all, but many of them, there's an opportunity to bring your own personal experience and your own personal story into the conversation. The curriculum is flexible. There are alternative activities. Each workshop is 90 minutes long. And you know what? Dave said he gets 10 minutes and he can talk for 22. Well, that can happen in our workshops too, where we say, okay, we've got 15 minutes for this exercise, but look, it took a half an hour. So as a leader, know that there's a lot of flexibility in choosing which activities. There are always a couple of different alternate activities. Sometimes the alternate activities might include a larger group. It might be to show a movie, and that might be something that you could begin to involve the entire congregation in this conversation around money. So there's lots of flexibility in the structure. There's always a take-it-home activity. So, we come to church or congregation or society or our place, our home, and we spend, an hour or 90 minutes in this class. And then we go home for the other 6 days and 22 and a half hours, and hopefully we're thinking about it, but maybe not. So there's always a take-it-home activity that invites us to extend the learning, to take it home with us. Maybe it's an activity to do with our family. Maybe it is, in one of the workshops, I think it's to go home and just look back at your checkbook and see, how many different contributions you've made over the past year, or things like that. So there's always something to extend that learning, take it out beyond the workshop itself. And then finally, there is always a faith in action activity, and this is just an opportunity for us to just really connect our UU values with the work that we've done in the workshop. And it could be, I think one of the faith in action things is, hey, how about we set up, and I bet a lot of you do this already, set up a booth where we sell equal exchange coffee in our coffee hall, in our fellowship hall. So sometimes faith in action is something like that. Sometimes it's writing a letter to a senator, to something. So it's a way to take your faith out into the wider world. So that's your introduction to Tapestry of Faith. And now we're going to talk about the 12 workshops. And they're in 3 themes that Dan described before.
In the 3 parts, the first of them is meant to frame the larger project together. It's a moment for the formation, begins in the formation of the covenant and doing reflective work on one's own sort of values and experiences and sort of primes for what comes next. The first workshop, as I say, touches on covenant, touches on, makes use actually of a lot of the resources from the President's Council and the modeling, personal storytelling from the President's Council work to kind of set the tone for what reflective work is and what sharing self-narrative looks like. It's also a place where, for instance, I think we kick off with a spectrum exercise to understand that there's diversity and difference gathered in the room, which will be a theme that we come back to again and again through the Wisdom Path curriculum, is that not only does our experience change through a lifetime, but our experience is different from the experience of everyone else gathered in the circle with us. In the second workshop, it really is a move toward that personal story, understanding our histories, noticing the role of money within it, and teeing up that and sharing personal autobiographies. It's really the foundation for everything that's going to come later. That arc of the Wisdom Path in these 3 sections goes from, reflective and a kind of self-centered enterprise in the first instance to one that's connected across a community in the second phase of the arc to finally, in the final sessions, a constructive project, like doing constructive theology, making plans, aspirations, and naming a path forward. So Wisdom Path is about looking at the journey past and laying out a path forward. The third workshop in that first arc, if you will, part of it was looking inward and doing personal autobiography. It's also about noticing the way we have received messages from all the different sources in our lives. I touched on a little bit in my opening words the way that our religious tradition has left us a legacy for good and for bad of messages about money. Part of the practice in this workshop will be noticing those. Part of it's noticing the messages we receive from our culture around us about money and about wealth and about the nature of economics. And then finally, we take it to a very particular sort of congregational frame to say, what are the messages we have long heard from the pulpit and in our congregations about money, both in the context of the congregation itself, but also about us as Unitarian Universalists? What are the messages we've received about money, and how have they shaped our understandings today? So that's the first sort of reflective arc that lays the groundwork for what is to come next. So
the next series of workshops, the second in the series of three, the arc of three, is taking it more broadly out into society. So in these 4, 5, 6, 7, these 4 workshops, we're going to look at how we are connected to others through money and through our financial choices and our financial, perhaps our financial standing. We're going to be talking about issues of classism and economic justice, and also think about money in the congregation during this particular arc. In workshop 4, the many meanings of money, we're really going to think about kind of our conversations about money, maybe in our home or directly in our congregations. And we actually, in this workshop, we use case study. There is one that's a family and there is one that's in a congregation, to allow people to kind of immerse themselves in a role and immerse themselves in some critical analysis around the way some people may be, some ideas folks may be projecting about money in the case study. And we also are going to talk here about this idea of special money. Have you ever, sort of had that, that money comes out of another pocket? Have you ever heard that expression? And sometimes we have that in our congregations. We have restricted funds. We have money that's set aside for one use or another. And we do that in our personal lives as well. And there's a whole kind of psychology around that, around what it means to name something as special money. And there's a wonderful story that we use in this particular workshop. So in session 5, again, money and society. Here we are going to talk about class. We're going to, there's a game, a fun little game with cards where, folks kind of get dealt a situation, and they have to, they talk with one another about the outcome of what the cards that they were dealt. And it just opens up opportunities to have conversations around the really difficult topics of class, the topic of class in our congregations. That is one of those, there are a few, frontiers that we're still really pushing through, and class is one of them. And there's a section here about dreaming, and there's, throughout the workshop, you will find there are some art-based kind of activities. And, some people say, oh, arts and crafts, that's not my thing, I don't do that. But let me tell you, there is a real freedom in working with a medium other than your brain and your mouth. Using hands and using your eyes and using other senses to think and create and to open up space for you to see things differently, or maybe to discover something about yourself or about your relationship with money that you never understood or never really were able to articulate before. And art can be a powerful tool in making that happen. So there are art projects throughout. We're going to talk about the impact of our personal choices in the larger community. So here I think our story is related to some things that are happening, in, not China, India maybe, I think it's in India, about workers and some of the places where our goods come from, the choices we make, and how that really ripples out, and taking it really down to the families and the way that some folks live in other places in order to produce the goods that we are sometimes very casual about. We go out and we buy lots of stuff. So, we're trying also to really bring in a deeper connection with between our Unitarian Universalist values and our action and our behavior around money in the greater world. So really thinking about that Principle 7, the interdependence, and some of the justice, the principle around justice, really thinking about those and really trying to make some very concrete connections. There's a workshop 7, which is imagining a transformed world, which is really about just thinking about how things can be different. How can we go beyond the barriers? And some of those barriers are constructed barriers. We have, barriers. Certainly, we have class, financial barriers in our country. We have color barriers in our country. We have barriers around ableism in our country and in our society. And just really thinking about how that is really all part of the larger picture as well. And what do we, as Unitarian Universalists, what is our call? What are we called to do in response to some of those challenges? Oh.
As I was saying, in the last arc of the series in workshops 8 through 12, we work to align faith and values with action, to plan for living into the values that we've articulated through the program. And we've sort of teased that apart into some different strands of earning and spending, giving and investing as kind of 4 interdependent spiritual practices that somehow work together in a larger theology of wealth and money. In faithful earning, some of the themes that we emphasize in that themes of the dignity, the basic dignity of work and the connection of work to earning a living, kind of beginning in a place of valuing that. This workshop 2 goes back to deepening kind of our financial autobiographies as we go back into our experiences of earning livings in all the different ways that we have. It moves from personal experience to stretching to understand other people's experience through discussions of equity and fairness and the idea of work and compensation and difference across society and across societies. We stretch in that. In the faithful spending portion, we try to talk, again, starting in a place of being value positive in a way. If we talked about OWL being a kind of sex positive curriculum, this is in a way kind of a money positive curriculum, and it starts in the place, the essential character of it is connected to things of worth and value. So questions about what it is we treasure and the ways that we've used money that have been life-giving and life-reaffirming is so often the place we start. In personal experience and in positive experience is where we start. We stretch in that spending as we talk about developing a constructive theology to reflect on questions of consumerism and excessive consumerism. We talk about the kind of ascetic instinct and drive and the possibility of doing with less. Holding together, I think, those two sides, that money has value and delivers things of value, and it's possible to do with less, to want and need less. We move from spending to what we've called faithful giving, and with core themes that we come back to again and again in church, gratitude and generosity, the connection between giving and our own experience and relationship with money, and how actually the act of giving transforms that. And then we talk about investing. In this one, we actually do spend some time, I think, talking about what the meaning is, what we mean by investing, and what the basic principles are. Because one of the things that we've encountered, and as we've experimented with this, is that people come with a lot of preconceived ideas and notions about what investing means. And so that starts also in an investing positive place of thinking about putting our money to work in a different way, and particularly putting money to work for other people outside of our own needs, which is really what investing gives an opportunity to do. We do spend time within that looking at socially responsible investing and different approaches to, faith-based investing, the core of it. And then finally, the hope is in session 12 that this is an integrative, synthetic moment to bring it together, to have a kind of chance to articulate for ourselves a statement of belief about money. A statement of belief about money, its connection to our faith, and its connection to the things that we hold as most important and most worthy, and then to have the chance to share that with each other, and the chance, as we do in some of our other programs, bring that into the worship life of church.
So those are the 12 workshops, just in a nutshell. And as I said, that's all available for you on uua.org if you want to delve a little bit more deeply. But I also want to talk briefly about how to use Wisdom Path in your congregations. It is a 12-workshop series, and our deepest, fondest wish is that you will use all 12. You will use them in sequence. It's not unlike OWL, where it really builds on itself, number one. And number two, as perhaps we have a sense of ownership, but as we look at the curriculum, it's really hard to tease out what you would leave out. What is not important in this conversation? Because it is all important. So we strongly encourage that you find a way to do the 12 sessions. The pacing could vary. You could do all 12 sessions, do one a month for a year. You could spread it over semesters or over years. You could do the first section 1 through 3 in the fall, and then do 4 through 7 in the spring, and then finish it up in the following fall, if that works with your program. You could do an abbreviated program. If you were doing an abbreviated program, I would consider perhaps doing that with your leaders, so they really get an understanding of the program. Maybe do sessions 1 and 2, or 1, 2, and 3, with a group of committed leaders in your congregation. And if they get a sense of the value and the importance of this for the rest of the congregation, they may support you in offering the full 12-session program. Some of the workshops may also be suitable. Has anybody ever used Harvest the Power, our leadership development curriculum? Yay, good. Oftentimes, you can pull a single workshop out of something like Harvest the Power. And there are a couple of workshops, some of the ones that really kind of emphasize reflection, that you might be able to pull out for, say, a leadership retreat. If you had a stewardship committee or a finance committee that was having some kind of a retreat and you really wanted to get them into a deeper conversation, there may be some things, and we could help you figure out what those workshops might be. Again, we want to encourage you to also choose leaders carefully. Just like in our sexuality training, we hope that the people who will come forward for training are folks who have a good, healthy relationship with money already, who have that values positive sort of connection with money, and also folks who are willing to be a leader of the curriculum, and rather than kind of maybe bringing in an outside agenda that may run slightly counter to some of the things, that somebody who's really willing to live into the curriculum as it is. So that's my thing, and I think now we're going to hear from Wayne Clark.
Thanks, Pat. So very briefly, I want to give you a sense of the connection of Wisdom Path to the Congregational Stewardship Network. So I started with the program back in 1993. That's the Congregational Stewardship Network, although it wasn't called that. And I've been the director of the program since 1998. In 2007, I published the Beyond Fundraising book. How many of you have a copy of Beyond Fundraising? Great. Good. I've announced my retirement for June of 2015, a year from now. So it's been a long time, and I think it's a good time for me to move on. So the Congregational Stewardship Network helps congregations. We have 7 consultants around the country. We help congregations with annual budget drives, capital campaigns, strategic planning, endowment development, and I also manage the UUA loan portfolio that provides building loans, loan guarantees, grants to congregations. Several months ago, we got a copy from Gail of the manuscript for the Wisdom Path, and I shared that with my 7 consultants, and every single one of them said 2 things. 1, this is great, and 2, how do we sign up to be a facilitator? I suppose the third thing that they recognized was this is not something that is part of a annual budget drive or a stewardship drive. This is really separate from that. To find all 7 of them in such strong agreement was unusual, and I think is a good indication of how well this program has been conceived and been written. At the same time that the President's Council was creating Wisdom Path, or Owl for Money, as it was called for a couple of years, Mark Ewart, one of our stewardship consultants, was writing a book titled The Generosity Path. They didn't know that either the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, but it got very clear as Mark's book moved toward publication that this is a great companion piece. He interviews 7 people who self-define themselves as being generous people. There are exercises to do. There's resources in the back. It's a great book. Let me read you just a little bit of what I wrote on the back of his book. Mark Ewart has written The Generosity Path with an abundance of kindness and grace. It's one of those rare books that creates a shared journey between the author and his readers. He awakens the slumbering philanthropist in all of us by providing tools to help us become part of a generous community. He reflects on ways in which we are already generous and helps us find ways to expand our generosity no matter our life circumstances. This has only been out for a couple of months. How many of you have had a chance to get a copy? Good. Wow. Great. Good. And he just finished doing a book signing about an hour or so ago, but I suspect he will be around the CNSN booth just up 1 floor up if you'd like to have him sign your copy. And they are, of course, still for sale in the bookstore that's here. And I think that's all I need to say.
So now's the time for questions and hopefully answers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be the moderator here, and if you want to come to the microphone and ask a question, we'll figure out which of us is the best person to answer. Do we really tell you everything?
So I'm curious, in your field testing congregations, I don't know, 12 weeks just sounds like a long commitment, and I'm wondering what feedback you got about that. I mean, were people willing to commit? Did you get a lot or a few?
First off, can you say who you are and what your congregation is?
My name is Erin Hottenstein. I'm from Foothills Unitarian Church in Fort Collins, Colorado.
Okay. And I will tell you that you've just asked the most frequently asked question. Actually, there is an FAQ that we've prepared that you'll be able to find online as well. But the most frequently asked question is 12 sessions. Eek. I will say that adult learners, in general, learn things that have value in their lives. So although people may say, oh, adults won't do anything that's longer than 2 or 3 sessions long, I point to the fact that there are adults who engage in small group ministry. There are adults who decide to learn a musical instrument and go once a week for years, and so on. And we really do believe that money is something that is so important in people's lives that, we can't do a good job in the temptation, if you do it in a short framework time, is to go completely in your head. That doesn't allow time for the heart stories to unfold. That being said, we are recommending that if there's a lot of resistance to something long, that if there's a lot of resistance, that you try offering the first 2 or 3, which are about your own money story and the messages you've received, and see if from that you can gather a group to do the full program.
Thanks.
I will also say, having been one of those field testers, that our group was very consistent throughout all 12. I was surprised, actually, because of the same. A few missed one or two, but people did commit to the full time frame. That was an expectation that was made up front, and some others that were on the task force that I've talked to have had similar experiences. So I imagine there's some that may not have had that experience, but it was fun, great.
Okay.
I just want to say one small thing, which is that reconceiving of it too as a year-long program, 12 months, it's a turnkey small group ministry experience that you create a bonded group in a sustained way over 12 months, which we do in small group ministry anyway. And then it creates a nice spin-off opportunity because you have a bonded year-long group that you can spin off into your standing small group ministry program. And so instead of thinking of it, how would we do a dozen sessions in a month, think of it as having a solution for the entire church year, which is helpful as a parish minister for me to think about that cycle and also how to get people in a sustained practice of coming together.
You can tell we all feel strongly because we all had an answer to this question. The other thing is also to pull your committed leaders, to pull your board members, to get your board president, get folks that people will want to take a class with into the training, and that will help to help people with their sense of commitment.
I'm Jamie McReynolds with the Thomas Jefferson Memorial Church in Charlottesville, Virginia, and we're one of your beta testers. We've had about, I only attended the first couple, but I think we're about 6 sessions in now, and we've had pretty consistent attendance. And I'm wondering about, in terms of feedback, I really like your idea about it being couching it as a small group ministry about money, because I've been an OWL teacher. And it's really kind of secondary to sex as a unspeakable, something that you don't share about personally. So it's a powerful way in. I'm wondering when you're going to have feedback. Are you going to be sharing the feedback that you get from the beta testing?
The plan is to, a couple of things are happening. I'm in conversation with the regional leads about how we might help train facilitators, and secondly, we are still receiving field test feedback, and there'll be some tweaking happening in January and February. So what you'll see is really that tweaked program rather than the actual field test feedback.
Hi, I'm Les Polgar, Mount Diablo, UU Church in Walnut Creek, California. First, thank you. Second, from the testers so far, is there any feedback on your recommended range for the size of the group that you assemble? I'm asking because I'll be doing this in the fall at our church.
I haven't had direct feedback about that. I think in the introduction we basically say the ideal size for a small group is 8 to 10 people, and that you need to kind of move accordingly if you have more or less with more leaders, and some activities need modification if you have a whole lot more people than that. So there's instructions in the introduction about group size.
Les, for what it's worth, I capped it at 15. Okay. I felt that was the maximum amount that I could really facilitate, right. And we actually had more people want to take it, so they were on a waiting list for next year.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good morning. Jim Nealon, UU Fellowship of St. Croix, Virgin Islands. What kind of span of resources of the individuals who would come to this series can you tolerate? In other words, it's worked very well for a fairly homogeneous economic group.
We've actually, and I guess I can answer this because I'm seeing the field test feedback. I'm hearing from congregations that this has opened the way to conversations across economic means that they have never been able to have before, because it begins in personal money story and provides a tool. I'm hearing from parish ministers, especially, that it provides a tool to open conversations that they have never been able to have between people of limited economic means and people of more means in congregations.
And so I want to say, in a sense, it has a power to overcome the apparent homogeneity. How often we have what appears to be homogeneity, but just a kind of suppression of difference, because when do we talk about that? And I've been struck, even in small groups where I kind of have a presumption that we have a shared economic background or class background, and it's always a wrong presumption, has been for me.
Okay. I think it's the hour. It is the hour and hour 75 minutes. I can be reached at gforsythvale@uua.org if you have questions about the actual curriculum. You can also just, if it's easier for you, religiouseucation@uua.org or re@uua.org. Somebody will forward it to me if you have questions. And you can go and look at Wisdom Path on the UUA website. And we're really, really glad you were here. Thank you.